Today, the 11th month, the 11th day, the 11th hour, the First World War, or the Great War, has ended. Many died, many more wounded, people foubarred, essentially. World War I often is told. There's cinematics and books of the survivors, but it doesn't do enough justice for what was lost of the people. And as this generation moves on and becomes new, most of the time we don't realize stories that could have been told that we've lost, or stories that will be lost over time as we grow older. It's been 100 years since the First World War, and 105 maybe years since it ended. Since it started. It's only been 100 since it ended. But within those 100 years, we've lost almost all World War I veterans, if not all of them, by now. And World War II veterans are dying as we speak. Many of them dead between the 90s, or 80s even, till 2010. Very few survive. Most of them American, and many of them naval. I served in the Pacific. Not many more from Europe. But as people move on, people forget about history. And history is forgotten. I consider myself to be one of the few people who actually give a damn about history. And I take much care into it. If you guys have never noticed or seen, there's very few people that do that. But it's not just the First and Second World War we should remember all wars, of course, on both sides, knowing the horrors of war, the actions and atrocities that were committed. World War I saw a generation die within years of bloody war. And on the 11th day of the 11th hour, the 11th month of the 11th day of the 11th hour, many soldiers died. In fact, 2 operations the Americans were going through were still happening up until that point, including the Lost Battalion, well known for being in the Battle of the Argonne, cut off from all resources by the Germans, and despite being asked to surrender and having no chance of winning, they kept fighting. The war ended and they were free pretty much. Although there's more to that story than I'm explaining here, of course. The younger generation of people who watch these videos, or anyone who comes across this, I warn you that you must remember these things. If you have family who served in any war, ask them about it. Don't push them. Ask them. Find their stories out. Find out what happened if they're willing to talk about it. Many soldiers aren't. Especially ones that saw such bloody action of the 20th and the 21st century of wars. And even before that, although nobody's alive from possibly, well, of course, almost no one's alive from World War I and back. If they are, they were children at the time. They never served. But they served in any other war. I recommend talking to them. People don't realize how important history is and how history shapes our future. If we can't remember, we're doomed to repeat it. We see it many times. Well, in the case of World War I and II, poor decisions in the Treaty of Versailles led to the Second World War. Poor decisions always plague history and cause other conflicts. As we grow up and become leaders in our countries, leaders or anything really, whatever we plan to become, some of us want to own businesses, some of us just want to work, some of us want to become politicians, but we have to remember what happened in the past so we can avoid it again, especially those wanting to become politicians. For example, here, the millennial generation and some people within Generation Z want to push for the removal of statues of the Confederate Army. But what people don't realize is that those statues stand there as a reminder of slavery. Now, as a reminder that, mainly serves as a reminder that people were oppressed. People were looked down upon. And not to do it again. But the removal of statues even shows people will forget over time and things could happen again. Maybe not in the same exact way, but that exact same thing can happen again. Communism even. We saw the fall of communism. Maybe we didn't in our generation, but people who were baby boomers, people who grew up at the time of the Cold War, or people who were born before that in the 20s, they've seen all that. They've seen rise and fall of nations. Now I don't know where I'm going on with this, but main message here: take a moment of silence on the 11th hour. Learn about the history of wars that your grandparents or anyone in your family, even modern times, had been in. I can't stress that enough. That people remember these things. Now you'll notice a lot of people don't care. They have games and everything, and they'll see war games. It's fun, but they don't realize that people died. I mean, most of them probably do, but they don't take it seriously to heart that people died, people lived in those times, and served through it. I know I play World of Tanks a lot, and I play a lot of shooting games and whatever, but things like that happen. World of Tanks actually fought against each other. People died in fires and explosions inside of those tanks. And infantry were ran over, shot, and blown to bits by them. Wars hell. I personally never served. Would I? If it comes to, I will. Not many of us, are willing to pick up a rifle. But back then, even now, there's still a sense of patriotism within the countries. Many countries, especially in Europe, feel the guilt of things that their countries did in the past. And they find other ways to deal with it. Poor decisions too. This generation is seeing the fall of many nations to come. But let's not forget those who saw war. History is important. Learn your history. Learn your family members' history, even if they served, even if they didn't. Family is important. But today I remember those who served in the First World War and lost their lives, or just served in general and saw all that. The trenches, the mud, the explosions. Hearing deafening whistles. Or even at sea, seeing U-boats hit their transport ships, like let's say the Lusitania and many others. We have to remember these things, because if we don't, who will? People think history is not important, but it honestly is, and I cannot stress that enough that it is. Now, I respect that many people may choose not to learn about history, but it is fairly important if you want to get into anything to know your history about. And you can meet some great people along the way. I know I have many, many great people. You know, a lot of people now, especially guys, girls, this generation, they're on their phones or playing things like Fortnite. But nobody really takes attention to history. So anyways, today, the 11th hour, please take a moment of silence. Remember those who served. And if there's a memorial somewhere, go there. If there's a memorial for people who served, and it's public, of course, go there. Make it known that those people were appreciated for their sacrifice. And modern military, thank them too. Many people hate the U.S. military. Many people hate their own militaries in their own countries, but you know what? Those militaries are important. Groups that want to say that, oh, the military is not important, we should tear down the military. The military is doing this, and that makes the world worse. Well, would you prefer no military? That's enough ranting. Today is Armistice Day / Veterans Day, the 11th month, the 11th day of the 11th hour, and it marks the end of the First World War. One of the bloodiest conflicts within the 20th to 21st century. Of course, I'm saying 20th to 21st because, that sparked larger conflicts down the way with different things going on. So please remember these things. Because as time continues, we're all going to forget. It won't even live on in movies or anything. In fact, now we see almost no movies about any war. Because people don't want to see the realities of it. That these things happened. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.